Hello, Charlie Redding from Efficient Portfolio here. Welcome back to our client case studies series, where we go through some examples of how we've helped clients to help try and clarify how we might be able to help your clients, help you spot the opportunities of where we can add value to your service. So in this particular example, I want to talk through a client that was getting divorced. And actually the client came to us just at the end of the divorce process, which is the first problem actually. I'll explain why as we go on, but it's much better if we meet somebody that's getting divorced much earlier on in the process. We can take a lot of their worry and pain away if we do that. Now this particular person was getting divorced and was from a wealthy family and was receiving around £5 million in settlement and £2.3 million to educate the children. And their biggest worry, am I going to have enough? It's the same worry that we see time and again. We have people in the lead up to retirement, people getting divorced, people selling their business. Their biggest concern is, am I going to have enough? If this is all the money I ever get, is it going to be enough? And these look like huge numbers, but actually, depending on the situation, it may or may not be enough. So what we did was, the key to this client really at the start was lifetime cash flow forecasting. And what we did was we said, well, okay, fine, if you keep this money in cash, then no, it's not enough. You are going to run out if you leave the money in cash. And actually, people's instinct in this situation is sometimes to try and be as safe as possible, and they think that putting the money in the bank is the safest thing. But of course, inflation, the effective inflation eroding the money meant that actually this was not going to be enough money if they left the money in cash. If they invested the money, however, and got reasonable returns above inflation, and of course in this situation you wouldn't want to take huge amounts of risk, you'd want to take enough risk to make sure you'd got enough money later on, then actually they could leave not only enough money to have for all of their life, but they could leave a healthy amount for their children to inherit later on. So by investing the money, you can see here on the liquid assets chart that actually even if they lived to age 100, there was more than enough money. But of course, by investing the money, there was that worry from this individual who'd never really got involved with finances too much. What happens if there's a stock market crash? What happens if 35% of the money gets wiped out overnight? Well, of course, the beauty of cash flow forecasting is we can model that scenario too. And actually, even with a market crash in there, the money was still going to be absolutely fine and still going to have more than enough money to last them through to age 100. And what if the amount of spending they told us they were going to spend was actually not sufficient? What if they end up spending more than we expected? Well, we modeled that too, and we said, well, if you overspend, then actually there's still enough money. In fact, the beautiful thing about that is because this person had still got children at school, then it was the flexibility to be able to say, look, if there is an amazing holiday you want to do with the children over the next few years while you've got the opportunity, absolutely you can do it. And then it's about being smart with cash flow forecasting and saying, okay, what could a flexible income look like? How could we actually deliver a better income for you to really deliver what's important to you at the different stages in your life and still make sure that you have enough money? So lifetime cash flow forecasting for this individual was massively important. Their biggest concern was, am I going to have enough? And lifetime cash flow forecasting is how we could demonstrate that actually, as long as they took the right actions with their money, that they did have enough. But the daft thing is, this is the thing they'd been worried about almost entirely through the divorce process. And yet, if we'd been introduced to them earlier on, we could have done the lifetime cash flow forecasting at that point. At that point, we'd pause our work, but ultimately, having done that at the start of the process, they would then be comfortable. Actually, if they got the figures that we were expecting, that was going to be okay, and they were going to have enough. And actually, they could have put those worries to the side and got on with dealing with, and just focused entirely on things like the children, which of course are even more important than the money. And then, of course, what we wanted to do for this person was minimize tax. So we again used ISA allowances, we've used pension allowances, we've used a personal investment portfolio to use up the capital gains tax allowance and fund the pension and the ISA each year. And we've set up an estate planning framework. So we've got, so we've worked with some solicitors to create a trust framework so that what they want to happen to their money does in a protected fashion, and that the children aren't inheriting too much too early if something was to happen that was unexpected. And we've also again set up some whole of life cover to make sure that if something unexpected happens in the next few years and there's a huge inheritance tax bill to pay, of course as this money is spent that liability will fall, but we've set up cover to make sure that if something unexpected happens in the next few years, there's a lump of money sat in trust waiting to pay the inheritance tax so that the children can still inherit the money that was intended. So that's just an example of how we might help somebody that was going through the divorce process. As I said, I'd reiterate, the earlier we can get involved, the better, because the more pain and the more worry we can take away from the individual throughout that process. We may not be able to help set up things like the ISAs and the pensions. We can certainly help them understand what their options are. And in fact, we can even do so in a mediation way with both the individuals to say, well, look, the optimal split would be to split these assets in this way so that in the end, the children end up inheriting the most once you've both gone. So getting involved early is really important from a splitting up the assets point of view, but also from a peace of mind through cash flow forecasting point of view. And then as and when the assets are split, we can then optimize them and make sure that they deliver the best returns possible to help make sure that they don't run out of money during their life. So I hope that's valuable. I hope that gives you an insight as to how we might help somebody going through the painful experience of divorce. If we can be of any help for a client that's similar to this or completely different, please drop us a line and we'll talk you through how we may be able to help them. Just get in contact and we'd love to chat it through. Thank you.